remaining questions for the Browns heading into the 2024 season. This is from Dog Pound Daily. Number 3, what are the remaining areas of concern? Number 2, they have, can the offensive tackles stay healthy? And number 1, will Deshaun Watson be good enough? Let's start with the areas of concern. Fred, this roster's, it's pretty solid. There isn't an area where you look at and you go, oh, I mean, if you want to nitpick, maybe backup tight end, second tight end.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough for these rookies to make the roster. I mean, it's now getting to be a point where the practice squad is some of your best chances to get on the team, because with this new kickoff rule, I almost think that they're going to keep 2 returners, just because you're going to have 2 returners on the kicks, and it's kind of being forced to run the ball out, and you got to have one on each side. You could end up having one of your roster wide receivers back there or something like that. But when you look at it all the way around, Jordan Akins is the backup tight end. He didn't do a lot last year. He had 15 catches, and he's more of a pass receiver. David Njoku, we all know, went to Pro Bowl, had a great year. But if he were to get injured or go down, you don't really have much there. So as you said, backup tight end. They did not draft a tight end. They signed Trayton Welch. I wrote a little bit about him in a takeaway from the mini camp. Good size, pass catcher, could be a Harrison Bryant type guy. They also have Zaire Mitchell-Payton, who had been on the practice squad for a couple of years. But they're pretty thin, battling for a third tight end. So you could see if there are any veterans out there that are available, they could sign, or that could be a training camp trade, or when somebody's waived or released, they could pick up. Linebacker, again, you're a little thin there. You drafted somebody in the 6th round, but are you going to hand that to a rookie? A lot depends on what he does. Andrew Berry has signed veteran linebackers in training camp when they get a chance to look at them. Last year, defensive tackle, they brought in Shelby Harris, who turned out to be probably their best or second best defensive tackle, and he didn't come in till 2 weeks after training camp started. So I think they will look at what they have as they go into training camp and then adjust, or after the mandatory mini camp here the first week or second week in June, see what they have and then evaluate bringing anybody else. But I don't see a lot of holes on the starting lineup. It's really backup roles, and most of these you have backups already. It's really even more depth behind the second team guys.
Let's skip ahead to, before I let you go, how good does Deshaun Watson have to be? I know everybody nationally has been kind of down on him. I think if he stays on the field, I think this team's going to be really, really good.
I agree, and I've been saying that. I'm not a homer with Deshaun Watson, but he just hadn't been on the field. When we've seen him on the field, he's always talked about having a slow start, and I looked at that, and that was true in Houston. And then he'd get better as the season went on. He got going, I thought, in that 3rd game last year against Tennessee. He ended up officially throwing for 289 and 2 touchdowns, but he would have had 329 and 3 if not an inadvertent whistle on a 40-yard touchdown that Amari Cooper had taken back. But then obviously he was hurt, so we spent the next month starting, stopping. Then he got going. He even mentioned that he felt like he might have got hurt in the Cardinal game, but he played against the Ravens. We all know he had a 14 for 14 second half, playing with a broken bone in his shoulder, and high ankle sprain, comeback win over the Ravens, and then he didn't play again. So you really couldn't evaluate him. If he can just stay on the field, Dave, in looking back, the Browns have not had a 30 quarterback or a quarterback throw for 30 or more touchdowns since Brian Sipe did in 1981 or 1980 season, when he was the MVP. And so I think Watson can have 30 touchdowns in this schedule if he just stays on the field. That's averaging, not even 2 a game. I just think he has to stay on the field and he has to learn to take care of his body and not maybe go head on up the middle and dive into 300 pounders. Maybe take a knee or run for the sideline, protect himself, um, and get the ball out. So I think that's got to be pounded into him with Ken Dorsey and so forth. So we'll see. But yeah, I don't expect him. He doesn't have to be elite for the Browns to get to the playoffs. They have a good enough roster. It was shown last year, nothing taken away from Joe Flacco, but he was dropped into the cockpit with a really good roster, even without Nick Chubb, and did quite well. You have to think Deshaun Watson has the skill set, the arm, more mobility than Joe Flacco on a long-term basis. So you just stay on the field and you'll get in your rhythm and get things going.